That's a bit dull, Mr. Mac. Should we go off track?
I think we should, Matty.
Let's go!
My running partner today is one of my best friends, Matthew Wigmore, and he used to be English Junior Fell running champion, so he was as fit as a butcher's dog. He's been running most of his life. So the question is then, Matt, you've been running most of your life, how have you managed to keep it interesting?
Well, I keep it interesting by going off track sometimes. I like to go in rivers, I like to go up mountains, I just like to get off track, a bit of adrenaline, something a little bit different really, to get your heart pumping and just to keep the interest in.
How has going off track and doing something different allowed you to stay motivated?
By going off track, it's kept me interesting because I always find a different route. Whenever I go out running, I find a different river, I find a different mountain, just to alternate really. I don't like doing the same things all the time, else I'll get bored, and I don't like following the crowd like perhaps other road runners just running along the road. I just like to get off anywhere I can. If there's not a path, I'll make a path.
I guess it's time to go off track then, Mr. Wigmore. Lead the way.
Let's go, Mr. Mac.
I thought that was going to be absolutely Baltic. It's funny how sometimes you look at something, you get quite nervous about it, it's never as bad as you expect. I think that's one of the good things about going off track. Yeah?
Back of the net, Jed.
Back of the net. Back from the training run. Not only is Matt a little bit of an off-track runner when we go out training, he also works with some very, very difficult groups of young people. And he's got a number of stories that relate to what we're talking about going where there's no path and trusting that other people are going to follow. So let's hear some of those stories.
I work with some of the hardest to reach students. Some have drug and alcohol problems, some have anger management problems. One of the challenges I gave to my students was to take a group of young people on a sail training yacht to Scotland. This challenge was quite hard as the students had to raise £1,000 to take the group away. When I gave the students the challenge, they were very demotivated. They didn't want to do it. They didn't think they could do it. They didn't think they could raise £1,000. I spoke to them again and again, and they just didn't think they could do it. And then one of the students, funnily enough, some other people had written him off. They said he wouldn't finish the course, he wouldn't achieve anything. He really turned it round for us. He tried to motivate the students, he encouraged them, he said we could raise the money if we do this, this, this and this. And through his motivation and his enthusiasm, the students raised £1,000 and they completed the challenge. The group were on a path, but it was a path of failure. They were demotivated, and then this other young person came in and made a different path. He motivated them, he encouraged them, he took them on a different route that they were not used to, and that's why they achieved the challenge at the end of the day.
So don't follow the path. Well, how does that make sense? Because sometimes following the path is a really good idea. Let's say, for example, I want to travel from A block to B block. I'm going to follow the path, aren't I? Because it's the shortest distance and the most convenient distance from point A to point B.
Obviously, the saying is not meant to be taken literally. Paths are not inherently evil. It is a metaphor for life. for when you're following a path that's taking you somewhere you don't want to go, following it because it's expected of you. The expected path for our next interviewee could have led him to some very bad places.
I grew up in an area of Liverpool called Norris Green. It's got a very, very bad reputation. It's been in the newspapers recently for, unfortunately, where the murders of Rhys Jones, the little boy a couple of years ago, came from. And I grew up on an estate where there was a lot of, unfortunately, drugs in the 1980s and early 1990s, and gun and knife crime. And it was always seen as the way forward for most boys of my age at my primary school to follow the gangs and join the gangs. And I, for one, and a couple of my friends decided not to do that. Thankfully, I had a family that helped me out with that as well. But I decided it wasn't the right thing to do. I didn't fancy it. I didn't think it was fashionable yet. Every now and then, I wasn't going to be the coolest person in the estate for that reason, but I knew in the long run I would be making the best choice. And today, I'm so glad, because a lot of the people who I know from the estate are unfortunately in worse situations than I am. I'm very lucky now. Some of them are in prison, some of them are doing, and unfortunately, far worse scenarios than even that. So I really didn't want to be part of that, and I'm so grateful for that now that I've worked hard, tried my best, and proved that it doesn't necessarily mean that you end up in a certain situation just because you live on a particular place or follow particular people. Do your own thing.
I was so convinced of the fact that if you set out on your own path that people will follow, I decided to set up a social psychology experiment to prove it to you. So, one sunny day last week, off I went to Heaton Park. People were chilling out, relaxing. Of course it was really hot. But as soon as I started to do something different, you could tell that people were interested. People were looking over, walking closer, slowing down as they walked past with their dogs, and cycling over. Everyone just seemed to be asking, just what is this guy doing? So, these guys were so interested, one of them even came over to offer to help me, just so he could actually ask the question, what on earth are you doing? And what am I doing? I'm setting up a slackline. It's like a tightrope, but, well, it's slacker. No sooner had I started than people were pulling over and stopping and watching. So, people were laughing, spectators all over the place. I'd started to do something new, and people would come over. They were not following as such to shit, so I upped the ante a little bit by trying to jump onto the line and falling off a whole bunch. Soon, the crowd started to gather, people just wandering on over. But no one was asking me if they could have a go yet. They weren't really following. So I figured, if I said nothing and just kept walking my path, things would change. And let's see what happens. Oh, here they are. The question was asked, the guy on the bike couldn't contain himself any longer. And as soon as the boys had a go, well, the girls had to have a go as well. Because you couldn't let just the boys do it now, could you? So, there they were, helping each other. I just stood back, sat down on the grass, and turned on the video camera. And this is what happened. Look at the people in the background. They're all watching as well. They all want to know what's going on. So my challenge to you today, ladies and gentlemen, is to follow your own path. Have a look at the people you're with. Have a look with the crowd that you follow. Are they going where you want to go? And I dare you, because it's hard and it's difficult, to go where your heart really wants to go. My dare to you, ladies and gentlemen, is today and every day, be true to yourself and walk your own path.
Of